Welcome to Mamamia Out Loud. It's what women are actually talking about on Wednesday, the 17th of September. I am Jessie Stevens.
I'm still Mia Freedman.
And I'm Amelia Lester.
And here's what's on our agenda for today.
A woman was told she couldn't pump breast milk in an airport lounge, and Mia has an unpopular opinion.
That I'm going to change. I'm going to change that opinion very quickly. Plus, some candid admissions about actor Bruce Willis and why his wife, Emma Hemming Willis, is facing criticism.
I'm bringing a little bit of a new segment today called Birth, Death and Marriages, and I'm going to somehow manage to shoehorn in the fact that two very famous women went to premieres this week wearing no pants.
You love that. But first, in case you missed it, Donald Trump is a dobber. I love this story. The ABC journalist John Lyons asked Trump yesterday about his business dealings and why he keeps making lots of money while he's president.
Was this in person?
It was in person
Okay.
on the White House lawn. Trump was about to go on his trip to the UK. He's so excited because he gets to ride in a horse-drawn carriage with King Charles and stay at Windsor Castle.
Oh, my God, we're indulging him.
So he was not happy to be interrupted on the way to his dream trip by John Lyons, but let's have a listen to what happened.
Engaged in so much business activity.
Well, I'm really not. My kids are running the business. I'm here. You know what the activity, where are you from?
I'm from the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, Four Corners
Well,
Program.
the Australians, you're hurting Australia, right? In my opinion, you are hurting Australia very much right now. And they want to get along with me. You know, your leader is coming over to see me very soon. I'm going to tell him about you. You set a very bad tone.
Well,
Go ahead,
okay,
John.
okay, so
Maybe
why
you
don't
can,
you
you,
just deal like
you
that?
can set a nicer
The
tone.
UAE does a deal. What does it want in return?
Quiet.
Yes, that was Trump
Quiet.
pointing his finger at John Lyons and saying quiet.
I'm going to try that with Jessie sometimes.
The reason I love this is because it highlighted for me a cultural difference between Australia and the US. When my kids started school here last year in Australia, after having moved from the US, they were immediately told not to dob.
Oh,
Now,
there's
dobbing-
Bluey episodes about
Yep.
it. You cannot dob. It is like the number one rule.
But I'm here to
Snitches get
tell you
stitches.
that's,
They do.
that's an Australian value, not an American one. Like kids are not taught that in the US. So when
Really?
Trump says, I'm going to tell on you and I'm going to tell your prime minister about you, that's seen as a totally okay thing to do. It's using the system. It's like reporting someone who's breaking the rules. Like there's no value in America saying not to
Really?
dob.
What John Lyons should have said is don't be a dibber-dobber.
Yeah, he should have. Because there's a lot of stigma here about dobbing.
Yeah.
It comes up in Luna's books all the time. We don't dob. Unless someone is like facing an issue with
Yeah,
their
see,
safety.
I don't know,
we
though.
don't tell.
Also bullying and stuff. We do encourage kids to speak up.
Yeah, true. But
Don't we?
generally speaking, I remember at school it was like the kid who was a dibber-dobber was just not with the in crowd.
The way to dibber-dob is to set up a fake Gmail account
What?
and then dibber-dob anonymously.
Is that what you've been doing with your time off?
Maybe.
You're just dibber-dobbing to people.
I have some feedback about Out Loud.
I think the main
That's who that person is.
The main takeaway from this is that Trump's basically saying he will in fact meet with Anthony Albanese, and I bet Albo's happy about that because it's been really hard for him to meet with Trump so far. Dr. Elise Turner is a GP who was returning from a conference in Perth to her Gold Coast home yesterday when she stopped off in the Virgin Australia lounge at Melbourne Airport. And she was there because she was on a stopover on the way back home and she wanted to pump some breast milk in the Virgin Lounge. And a supervisor came over to her and said, you can't do that here because there are men and it will make people uncomfortable.
Did she specifically say there are men? Or did she?
Yeah.
According
said
to
there are
Dr.
men.
Turner, she did cite the presence of men.
Okay.
And Dr. Turner says that she explained the pump was under her shirt, that there would be no nipple showing. But she was allowed to finish pumping, which I think is a part of this story that maybe was lost in the headlines. So after she finished pumping, on her way out of the lounge, she stopped to see the supervisor and she told the supervisor that she had made her feel pretty cruddy for breast pumping. That's the exact phrase. And that's when the supervisor said, you got to leave. She put her hand on Dr. Turner's arm and she said, you got to leave. You're making me uncomfortable. And here's what Dr. Turner said about the experience afterwards.
I'm told that I can't sit here in the Virgin Lounge as a paying business class ticket holder to express breast milk that sits under my shirt like this because this is a private business lounge and we don't do that here. This is just disgusting. This is 2025 and this is the sort of treatment that lactating mothers are expected to deal with.
Mia,
Yes.
I think you've got something to say about this.
Okay, so my opinion is exactly what's wrong with the world in 2025, because when I first heard about this story, I hadn't seen any pictures and I didn't know any details. I thought woman tried to pump in a lounge, was asked to maybe do it in the bathroom. She said no. Do you prepare your meals in a toilet? Was asked to leave. And I was like, I've breastfed 3 children everywhere. At funerals, at weddings, in public, in meetings, at airports, on planes, in front of all manner of people. And there is a difference between breastfeeding and pumping.
Yeah, talk me through that. I don't know if I agree with that.
So when you breastfeed, there's a baby's head in front of your boob and the baby has a grip on your nipple. There's a little bit, there might be a little bit of access when you are putting it in and out.
Oh, there always is. But the second you think you're safe, the baby starts to go and play with something and your nip's just out and your nipple has never been darker or bigger.
Sometimes that happens, right? But generally it's different to when you are pumping, and if you haven't pumped before, and I've pumped a ton, and I've pumped in office, again, I've pumped in all different places, and including bathrooms. And I agree, it's horrible to have to do it in a toilet where you have to smell everybody else's poo. That's disgusting. And it's not hygienic. It's not, because you've got to keep it all very sterile. But when you're pumping, you actually, depending on the pump, you can often see the nipple and the milk coming out. It also makes a lot of noise. Ring, ring, ring. If you've got a handheld one, then it can be just a bit more squelch, squelch, squelch. But then, of course, and I was like, it's fair enough. Like, that isn't like, I didn't realise that she was under her shirt. I didn't realise
she was in a quiet corner.
So my unpopular opinion, which is that pumping and breastfeeding in public is not the same, I kind of retract it.
Okay, I disagree with you that they're not the same. Like, another detail of this story that's getting missed, which I've become quite obsessed with, is that Dr. Elise Turner isn't the mother of one newborn. She's got twins. Oh. She has 6-month-old twins now.
Oh, okay.
Because my mother has 2 sets of twins, I'm obsessed with the logistics of that. My mum lasted maybe 4 days of breastfeeding twins. It is one of the hardest. You need a PhD in, like, when it comes to supply. The fact that she's got to 6 months breastfeeding with twins, that woman deserves an Order of Australia medal. But
I reckon I'd just accidentally keep feeding the same twin.
get that one really fat. Like, you'd need a spreadsheet or something. Now, the thing about pumping that I didn't understand until I had to pump was that when you have to pump now. It is not, you cannot do it on someone else's schedule. It's the same as breastfeeding in that way. In order to keep up supply, you need to be on a particular schedule, and you also get engorged. So I had a situation on a plane where the plane was delayed, and I could feel myself getting engorged. And I'm thinking, mastitis is 15 minutes away. Like, I need to relieve this. We all get ushered onto the plane. I'm like, it's fine. Once we're off, I'll go into the bathroom and I'll pump. And I sit in my seat, and 10 minutes pass, 15 minutes, gets to about 30 minutes, and I was like, I'm like leaking, like this is really bad.
And it is painful.
It's really painful. Yeah, and it just started feeling hot and awful, and I'm starting to get anxious, and I went, I've just got to go to the bathroom. So I took my bag and I went to go to the bathroom, and there was an announcement over the plane going, basically, get in your seats. You're not allowed to stand up. Like, where something was going on with the plane, when you've got to have your belt on before takeoff.
It's called turbulence often.
No, the plane hadn't left. But we'd been sitting there for 30 minutes. So I was like, well, can I just get some clarity? I got to relieve myself. Anyway, I went back to my seat, full flight, 2 businessmen next to me, 6 o'clock on a weekday.
Were you in the middle?
I was in the middle.
No.
And I went, I have no choice right now except to pump. And I didn't have one of the really cool wearable ones. Yeah. Like, I had, it was quite bulky and stuff.
Was it electric or was it manual?
It was electric, and it was loud. But the ones that can hide in your bra, it wasn't that. I could hide, like, they couldn't see my nipples. But I sat there with tears streaming down my face, just going, I don't want to do this. But, like, I have no choice. And I found that even in the workplace and
Did you say something to the men, or did they say anything to you?
No, they kind of looked the other way. And I remember at one stage making eye contact with a flight attendant and being like, if you say a word, I am going to riot. Like, I think there's a sensitivity to that. You're incredibly, because you're just going, there is so much pressure on me and Dr. Elise Turner and every other woman to keep breastfeeding. We are trying our very best. Pumping is the only way that most women can feasibly do it alongside work, which we often need to get back to because of, two-parent working households, whatever. And then when there's any shame or stigma or anything that makes you feel embarrassed about it, you get so angry.
But Amelia, don't you think that Dr. Turner and Jessie should have been at home with their babies?
You can really...
Why were they on planes?
You can hear the emotion, can't you, in Dr. Turner's voice? And it's because 6 months postpartum, there's so much that's going on chemically in her body still as well. And being away from your baby or babies when they're still 6 months old, you've already got a heightened level of anxiety coursing through your veins because your body is telling you that you should not be away from the baby. And so then to have someone come up to you and make you feel embarrassed, I can see how that really sent her spiraling, and I have so much sympathy for her. What's interesting about pumping is I dug into this, and Dr. Chen has pointed out that breastfeeding and pumping are both protected acts under the Sex Discrimination Act of 1984. But back in 1984, pumping was nowhere near as common as it is now. And the actual wording of that act talks about breastfeeding and expressing. Now, expressing, for those who don't know, it's this kind of like milkmaid act where you have to kind of fondle your own breasts and then
really
milk
hard.
leaks
It's
out.
like you have to milk it. Think of a cow.
Never mastered it.
Tricky.
I've had to do it because the logistics of remembering all your pump parts, like I would forget one part. I'd get to work and go, I'm fucked. And I'd have to go into the bathroom and like a cow with a teat,
really hard.
milk myself so that I didn't get mastitis.
I think what you said, Jessie, is so interesting about the shame from both ends, because as a mother of a newborn and, those first few months particularly, there's so much pressure to breastfeed, often when it's not the right thing for your baby and it's not the right thing for you. So you already feel ashamed if you can't do it right, if your baby's not putting on weight, if you don't like it, if you stop too early or you supplement with formula.
Or if your baby doesn't like it, by the way.
Correct.
Like this is a delicate dance.
But to then get shamed by the other side as well, it's funny, I used to now I'm remembering, I used to breastfeed quite aggressively in public, particularly with babies 2 and 3, because I think I was a little bit bored and I was just like, come at me. I was like waiting for someone to say something. So I'd like do it everywhere. No one ever said anything. I was a little bit disappointed.
I dare you.
There's also some cultural norms around it in different places. Like I lived in Japan with a newborn, and it's just a fact that you would not breastfeed in public there. Like it is not accepted.
Is breastfeeding culturally expected
Well, here's
and
the
encouraged?
thing. It is culturally accepted and encouraged, but unlike in the West, they've actually decided to allow for women to do it in nice spaces. So while you cannot breastfeed in public, they make sure that, for instance, if you go to the shopping mall, there is a literal lounge in every shopping mall for breastfeeding mothers to just lounge around with their babies in this safe, clean place. There's a place for hot water. It's totally
a lot of shopping
nice.
centres in Australia have that too.
I actually, kind of prefer that. I've had, I've been out with friends at the pub, at a restaurant, at a concert, and they've been pumping.
Your sister might have pumped
Taylor
at a
Swift.
Taylor Swift concert, I do
she
recall.
absolutely did.
I
But
think Taylor would approve of that.
another interesting detail about this was that I read somewhere that she was then encouraged to go into one of the private rooms, but you had to pay.
No, so she asked before she started pumping, hey, do you have a space for me to do this? And they said that you've got two options. You can hire a boardroom for $100 or you can use the bathroom. And what I was going to say about the Japan example is if you're not comfortable with women breastfeeding and pumping in public, you have to be able to provide a space for them to do it because as you point out, Jessie, it is kind of a physical act that can lead to harm if it's not done. And so that's where I think is the trip up here. You can't have it both ways. You can't say don't do it in public, but then we're not giving you a space.
And please stop telling women to do it in toilets. Have you ever hung out in a toilet? It's true. Would you like to prepare a meal in a toilet?
The issue with the toilet too, I pumped in a plane cubicle once during turbulence and everything I pumped went all over the walls. Like it just wasn't logistically possible. But you need
you had a lot of milk. What do you need?
It was probably the same flight. I probably went on one flight and just all these things happened. But you need a table. Like you
What?
have.
You don't really need a table.
Because the one that I had.
Boobs must be big.
And this is the
They've
thing.
got to rest on a
then
table.
it's like if you have the one that you tuck into your bra, they're like, that's not very good for supply. So you should really get the one that's got 45 pieces and costs you $800. And you're just like, oh, okay. And I had like bottles that went onto a thing that I had a special bra I had to put on, all of that. To do it, like, am I meant to do it on the toilet seat with my sterilised
Look,
milk
I think
things?
planes are slightly different because you can't have a dedicated breastfeeding room on every plane. Like you also have to say you can't have a dedicated breastfeeding room in every workplace permanently. As an employer, I do believe you might be legally required to do that.
That's not a bathroom.
That's not a bathroom. But
And you've got to let me put it in the fridge.
Yeah. And when I was at Channel 9 and I used to breastfeed, literally it was a whole lot of beers and my breast milk.
Oh, nice.
And that said everything you needed to know about that experience.
Well, but beer is meant to stimulate breast milk, right? Old wives' tale. But I was going to say, for people who are not familiar with breast pumps, they do look weird. I do want to put that out there. And there's something a little bit confronting about them because I remember when Rachel McAdams was, there was a photo taken of her on a film set looking impossibly glamorous and beautiful because she's Rachel McAdams, and she had her I think it was the cover of a magazine, and she had
she's the one that looks
breast
like
pumps. She does, strikingly.
That's the one that I had, a very similar breast pump to
she
that
had
model.
like 2 breast pumps
With the bottles
a breast
on the
pump
end.
on each nipple.
Yeah.
And you've got to say that there's some part about it that looks like, in the same way that a Pilates reformer mat looks a little bit like a kind of fetish device, there's something about pumping I can see how aesthetically it's confronting to people who are not familiar with the equipment. Let's put it that way.
I think it's aesthetically confronting to the person using it and to the baby. I hate it, but it is the lesser of two evils.
Did you guys ever pump in front of anybody? Like that you knew, like just in your house? Like you were always quite private, even with breastfeeding. You would often go into another room, Jessie.
Yeah, I think people expect that just because you've had a baby, all of a sudden you have no modesty. And I
would be
never,
me.
ever found it comfortable to sit in a cafe. And I was like, I don't want to be stared at. Sometimes you have to do it. I think that's why there's a sensitivity too.
Yeah.
Is that it's like I'd prefer not to, but I'm doing my best.
The hard thing about pumping too is with breastfeeding, there's a sort of like unspoken relationship which is communicated through smell and behavior and things between the parent and the child about when the breastfeeding is going to occur. And there's some way that you can communicate with that baby where you're like, not now, essentially.
Yeah.
But the problem when you're away from the baby is those cues are gone. And so when you need to pump, you need to pump.
Yeah, and the milk comes out and they can see the milk. And I don't know about you guys, but mine had like a bluey tinge.
Yeah. And also it comes out like a sprinkler, which most people don't know. But I remember very distinctly the first time I pumped in front of my brother-in-law. And because I needed to pump and he was over and I was like, is this where I didn't care? He was cool with it. I don't know if I'd do it like in front of my dad, but I was fine. I just sort of didn't care. Boobs aren't, as long as it was my decision and no one was looking like leering at me.
Well, that's an interesting question because now that I think about it, breastfeeding I was fine doing in front of people. Pumping I was not fine doing in front of people.
It definitely feels more intimate, weirdly.
Yeah. I never really enjoyed it. But I think it would be nice to see, like, I think if you want to do it privately, the idea, I used to go and hide in a video studio and do it at work, which I always hated. And the irony is I probably, if pumping wasn't such a terrible experience in terms of you're sitting in a meeting that's running 15 minutes over and you're going, I've really got to run and pump. And like, then the breastfeeding journey probably would have been longer. But for a lot of people, they just go, this is far too hard. But I love the idea. A friend of mine recently went to a doctor's appointment and the doctor was sitting there with a pump on during the appointment. I was like, I kind of love that.
That's better than when I went to the doctor once for a pap smear and she finished up her curry before the pap smear began. Look, Dr. Turner, I just want to say well done. I think having twins and breastfeeding sounds really
Dr.
hard,
Turner,
but we salute you.
When Emma Hemming Willis says it's not up for debate, it's not up for effing debate. Those words were published on Laney Gossip last week in regards to a choice made by 47-year-old Emma Hemming Willis, who is the wife of 70-year-old Bruce Willis, who is living with a devastating condition called frontotemporal dementia. The reason you might be hearing a lot about the Willis family at the moment is because Emma has written a book. It is called The Unexpected Journey, Finding Strength, Hope and Yourself on the Caregiving Path. And it's all about Bruce Willis's diagnosis and illness. And last month, Emma also shared that Bruce is now in his own home with 24-hour care. Emma and Bruce Willis share 2 children. They're 11 and 13. And she has been open about how Bruce would want them to be in their own environment that's suited to them and their needs, where they can be noisy and be adolescents. And
this all sounds very sensible.
yes, and Bruce needs his own environment at the moment because of his particular set of needs. Now, since that admission, Emma says she's received just this onslaught of online criticism, of people from strangers just saying, I cannot believe that you've put him in care like that. Basically, it's your job to look after him. She said she anticipated that when sharing her story. And in an interview with Diane Sawyer, she said, I feel like caregivers are so judged. You have to do what is right for your family and what is going to keep your loved ones safe, as well as your young children.
Yeah, I thought this was so interesting. And I think that the reason for the backlash, I mean, there's a backlash to everything these days, isn't there? But is not because had she said we're putting him into full-time care, into a home, because we can't meet his needs anymore, no one would have said anything.
What do you think it was about the language that
It's that they're rich. I think the people who would have been angry are the people who were like, well, that'd be nice. That'd be nice to have 2 houses and to not either have to have, I feel too guilty to put my person that I have to care for into a home, or I can't afford to because full-time care out of the home is too expensive or too heart-wrenching. Must be nice.
Right.
I think that's what it is. And I think it comes from a place, I think some people are just judgmental dickheads, but we don't care about those. I think that there would have been a real sense of pain and envy.
Yeah,
that they can afford that.
I wondered if the strangers and the anger, if that was coming from people who had never been in that situation before and couldn't imagine what it was like, and maybe identifying. So there was a report that came out a few days ago that said dementia is the number 1 killer for people in Australia. It is everywhere. If you are not currently caring for someone with dementia, it is likely going to come up.
Wow, it must have overtaken heart disease then.
Just in the last couple of days. And so I think when we hear stories like this, we either identify really strongly with the person with dementia, which is reasonable given the rates, or we go, I'm also going to be someone probably looking after someone with dementia, right? And so if you identify with that camp, you probably have a bit more empathy for what that does to a life, how many years it takes up, and also this particular, like Emma has done such a service to the subject of dementia because she's talking about all the different kinds, and this is a really specific type of dementia where symptoms include a lack of empathy, his personality changed.
You can become violent. You can become unpredictable. You can be unsafe in your own home. Like maybe the home that they were in just wasn't suitable. Maybe there was a pool that didn't have a fence. Like you just don't know. And also poor Emma, to me this also speaks of the impossible pressure and expectations we have of caregivers. She's got 2 little girls on one hand who are 11 and 13. It's not like Bruce's adult children, who many of whom have children of their own. And then she's got her husband who is only 70 and she's a fair bit younger than him. And one of her biggest supporters is actually Demi Moore, because they're sort of still a blended family, and Demi and her girls that she shares with Bruce Willis are all very close. And they've all lined up behind her and said nobody understands, and Bruce wouldn't want that burden on his young daughters.
What do you think about the admission, Amelia? Because she didn't have to tell us any of this. She could have just gone, I'm going to make my private decisions with Bruce. Probably didn't even need to tell us about the diagnosis, right? And once you put anything on the public record, once you write a book and you're doing interviews and
she had to, because he's a public figure and he had a big career and he was still making movies towards the end, and they were trying to get around it by having earpieces in his ears where someone would feed him the lines, and so it was quite well known in Hollywood that something was up.
I think you raised a really interesting point before, Jessie, when you talked about how there are the people who maybe identify with the caregiver here and there are people who identify with Bruce who has dementia. The problem with identifying with Bruce here and saying, well, Bruce, how can Bruce enjoy living in this house without his children, is that our thinking about how to treat dementia and how to respond to people with dementia is changing even now, even how widespread it is. There's still a lot of different schools of thought in terms of how people should respond to dementia. I read a really interesting article in The New Yorker from a few years ago called The Comforting Fictions of Dementia Care. And it talked about how 50 years ago, when someone with dementia would say, "Where's my husband or wife?" the appropriate response, it was thought, was to be completely honest with them and say they've died. And if that meant saying your husband or wife has died 50 times a day, then that was the medically appropriate thing to do. Well, in the years since, there's now been a new school of thought that says we don't need to be constantly giving these uncomfortable and hard truths to these people.
Because it's like they've lost that person again and again and again.
You don't
that's
need
causing
to.
distress.
There's a whole new school of thought that says that comforting fictions, like saying to them, "Oh, they must have just gone to the shops," is an absolutely fine thing to do. Now, again, that's just one school.
Is that what you've discovered, Jessie, with your grandfather?
Yeah, that's really interesting you say that. My grandfather is in a brilliant aged care facility with dementia, and your impulse is to try and keep their connection to reality strong. So he starts talking about how his mother was just in the room and his wife, and he's still looking after Simon, his grandson. And we would go, "No, Simon lives over here now." Like that was our instinct, right? And then we did all of this research, and it was basically like, you're causing... How confusing. Imagine if you said, "Oh, I'm going home to see my kids," and I was like, "You don't have," that would be so destabilizing all the time. It actually doesn't help. And what's been lovely with my pop, which is not everyone's experience, is that emotionally he's okay. Like he's fine. If he thinks that Simon just went up to the shop, then that's absolutely fine. We don't have to kind of confront him with reality all the time.
The issue is that for caregivers who've made this realization, it can lead to something called deception guilt. This is a real thing.
Yes.
If caregivers are constantly lying, and we've been taught from a very early age that lying is a sign of disrespect, you're not treating the person with respect and dignity, it leads to this feeling, am I doing something wrong? Yeah. Even if medical professionals are telling you that that's the accepted path. And so that's a really hard thing for Emma to have to deal with. If she's being told, no, it's fine to lie, in fact, that's probably medically advisable, that's going to weigh on her over time. And that's why a lot of caregivers apparently speak about this idea that they're no longer caring for their wife or their husband. They've become a nurse. And that feeling of I'm no longer in that relationship, I'm a nurse, I'm someone who's lying to this person all the time because that's what I've been told to do. I mean, who is anyone to judge that?
And I think that what that speaks to as well is that we just do not understand enough about the subjectivity of the person living with the illness. We cannot understand.
Because they can't tell us.
Because they can't really tell us. In the early stages, yes. But even reading what Emma has written about Bruce is like when they went to the doctor to get that diagnosis, it was like she was the only one in the room. He didn't even acknowledge the diagnosis. So it's not like you've got someone that you can discuss it with or go, what do we do next?
No.
You don't know what that person wants and what they're thinking and what their needs and desires are because they've evolved so much.
And that's why there's such a vigorous debate amongst the experts about how to treat them and what the best thing to say is.
Yeah, exactly. Before we go, I came across a Substack last night by Marina Cooley called 17 Household Habits That Clear Mental Clutter. And I'm always looking for ways to drastically improve my life on a Wednesday. And I wanted to know, how can I rearrange my home, my life, so that there's no longer any stress? Well, she's got some tips. Okay, do you want to hear some of them? These are her tips for how we are going to improve our lives. First one, exit zone by the door. Now, an exit zone means that you have everything you would ever need before walking out the door. So right near the door, you need either a cabinet or a cupboard or something that has your sunnies.
A piece of floor.
Your SPF. Exactly. Hats. Everything you need second you get
Trench
out the door.
coat if you're Colin Farrell.
Yes, exactly.
But not if you're Margot
Not if you're
Robbie.
Margot. Exactly. You need
I mean,
your
most
lippy.
people have that, like the keys and stuff near the door, right?
Keys, yes. But we have only recently had like a cupboard near the door that has like my hat and stuff in it. God, it's life-changing.
Do you
Okay,
wear
that's a good point.
shoes inside your house?
I sometimes do, but Luca doesn't like it. And so
is there a collection of shoes there?
Out the front door. Yeah. Second thing, always buy in duplicates. So if you know you're going to consistently use something, you're out of hand soap, you're out of detergent, you're out of your laundry stuff, you're not buying one, you're buying two. You're going to use it. It's not going to expire. That's the rule, right?
It's expensive.
It is expensive, but you're going to buy it anyway, right? Like
Yeah,
always
but not
get
everybody.
more.
I'm just going to say not everybody has, because Liz, not everybody's got that spare cash. Keep going.
All right. It's elitist and privileged, these
Yeah,
rules.
it's the latest and privileged.
Okay, here's another one. Put the house to bed. So every night you have to do a close down where you everything goes away so that in the morning you come and have a look and you
That's
go.
very important to me.
Okay,
Yes.
is the rule that the last person who goes to bed is responsible for the close down?
No, that's too much pressure. I think that everyone is doing close down. It's like when I worked at a bar and you were doing the night shift and everyone would go, all right, we're closing everything down. I think there's got to be like a 5-10 minute.
The problem is if you live in a house, most people have very different sort of schedules. So someone might go into their room to watch a movie or, I don't know, whatever, play with their vibrator earlier than others.
Oh, my God.
So you never know. People might be coming and going. So you might only, not everyone's always together to close down, and you can't close down at 6.
Well, let's be real. The person who does the close down is the person who cares about doing the close down.
Yeah, exactly right.
Thank God it's not me.
Okay, here's my other one. A 2-week meal loop. So that means that you have 10 weekly dinners, same ones for those 2 weeks, and then you just have them on repeat. My issue is I can't think of 10 dinners.
Yeah. And my issue with these tips is they really went off the rails. They started getting really ridiculous, some of these tips. And I feel like household hacks always end up there. She started talking about how she has some fancy electronic gadget that puts everyone's schedule on it.
Yeah, I was like, no.
Is
I
this
don't
an
want to buy
affiliate
anything.
link? Yeah.
A big thank you to all of you, the Out Louders, for listening to today's show and our fabulous team for putting this show together. And do not forget, you can watch us on YouTube. Mia has a sparkly shirt on. She'd like you to see it.
I do. And I'm going to be here all week.
Oh, yeah, Friday.
Yeah,
You're going
great.
to join us for Friday.
I'm having a nice time. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my goodness.
It's been great.
We will be back in your ears tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.